Well, welcome to the March allotment. Just walking up to my plot for the latest monthly instalment. And certainly in the last few weeks, the weather's really picked up. Things are so much better than they were, although I believe there's a cold snap coming down the tracks in the next few days. So it is only March, you have to tell yourself. When the sun shines in March, it is still too early to plant most things out in the open. But there's been a lot of activity up on the plots in the last couple of weeks or so, which is really nice because it was as dead as a dodo up here in February and wasn't really very pleasant. It was sopping wet. If you remember, I spent the last video moaning like crazy about how wet everything was, and it's still wet, but it's not as sodden and as manky. So I'm going to show you around plot 15 and I'll let you know what I've been up to for the last few weeks. Here I am, looking a little bit windswept. It's quite fresh up here today. So I've still got quite a few of the beds covered up with membrane, and that's because I said in the last video that I wasn't going to use all my beds this year, although now there seems to be a war going on in Iran and the Middle East. I might bring a few more into cultivation. It might be necessary to grow a bit more of my own stuff, because we all know that food prices are going to rise. Yeah, that's a little bit political, isn't it? But if you've got a plot, you might as well use it. Anyway, I'll keep it covered up for the moment. Now, these raised beds down here, I definitely will be uncovering fairly soon. And I'm going to just top them up with a little bit of soil, which I'll bring up from the garden at home. I've also got a little bit of dung I've got up here as well. So I will definitely be using those beds. This one here, I probably won't use unless I really need to. Something else you'll notice is there's quite a few, I put a whole lot of chippings on the paths. So I've upgraded the paths with a nice big fat bed of chippings. So that was a job I did a couple of weeks ago. And then obviously we've got the nice little wild area. Lots of those daisies are coming through. That should look fantastic this year. The pond is okay. Still a little bit low, so that will probably get topped up at some point. And then over here, I've still got some leeks left over from last year. I shall harvest those fairly soon. And I'll try and get some crops. Anywhere where there's a raised bed, I'm basically going to try and use that. And I'd like to introduce you to my new wheelbarrow. This is my brand new barrow that I bought the other day. And again, in my last video, you'll remember I was talking about getting a new wheel. And I did try that, but it all went horribly, horribly wrong, because the wheel I bought just would not fit over the axle. It was just too tight. Despite me trying it and thinking it would work, it just ended up not working properly. So the barrow itself was pretty knackered anyway, so I just decided to bin the whole thing, and I bought a new wheelbarrow, which is probably a bit extravagant, but you need a good wheelbarrow on an allotment anyway for carting stuff around. So that's my new wheelbarrow. Compost bins, I've done a little bit of compost turning over the winter, and they're not looking too bad. There'll be all sorts of fun things growing in there, no doubt, later. And again, there's a few chippings that I've just put around just to tidy things up a little bit. All the water butts are full, which is good. And then I had no problem getting into the shed today, which was really good. Slightly tight at the top, but it was generally okay. I have cut the grass paths now twice, believe it or not, although the last time I did it, which was last week, was incredibly wet. So it was not probably very sensible, but they are done and they are looking tidy. And I'm really pleased this year with my daffodils. Aren't they looking good? So those are some bulbs. I can't even remember if I put those in last year. I think it was the year before, but they seem to like growing there, which is lovely. Now, the other thing I've done is I've mulched my strawberry plants with some nice quality dung, which I actually bought this time. I don't normally buy manure, but this was a little bit of an extravagance, and I bought some. And I've mulched all my soft fruit, so the raspberries, the gooseberries, and the strawberries, just a little bit round. And I did that last year, and I had the most amazing crop, and I'm sure it was down to the mulching, so that was good. Rhubarb's starting to grow, which is lovely. And this is a forced bit of rhubarb there, lit, which I think is looking quite nice. So I'll give that a little bit longer. I'll put that back on later. Leave that for now. And then what else have I done? Oh, yes. So I've got the old flower beds And then over here, I have planted some broad beans. Now they went in, I'm just trying to work out when it was. I think it was a week ago. And obviously the soil's not particularly warm, so I'm not expecting any action anytime soon. I've also planted some at home in seed trays under glass. So and they are well and truly germinated. So if all else fails, I've got a backup plan. But I think these will come up. I know they did last year. They were just a little bit slower. The soil was colder and they don't get the protection. But they're in and hopefully they'll come up. And this bed is fully prepared. I've got a little bit of space at this end, so I might pop some parsnips in there this morning actually. And then I've got another raised bed here, which is again going to be prepared. I think that's probably pretty much what I've been doing. I've also knocked in my posts a bit more because they were a bit wobbly, and everything feels ready for spring, which is great news. And hopefully, I think the key to remember with March is not to try and do things too quickly. You get a nice day and you suddenly think, oh, I've got to plant this, I've got to do this, I've got to do that. But actually, the best thing to do with March is to be really patient and just do the minimum of things. But I'm very, very pleased that the allotment, as it is at last greening up, it's starting to look like a proper spring allotment should. And I've got some crops in the ground. So please subscribe to Pink Octopus Productions. I try and produce a video about my allotment once a month, maybe step it up a little bit in the summer months, but certainly this time of year, a bit of an update. So hopefully my next update will be at Easter time and in April, and then hopefully there'll be a lot more going on. I'll have put my spuds in and hopefully there'll be some germination going on as well. Thank you for watching. So just going to show you a little bit of homemade improvisation, which is basically a homemade cloche. I've just put my parsnips in and I thought it'd be a really good idea to cover them up because we've got some not brilliant weather over the next few days. So parsnips are quite hardy generally and they will germinate in not very nice conditions, but soil can be too cold and too wet. So because I didn't have a cloche up here, I've basically just got an old plastic bag that was lurking at the back of my shed, cut it lengthways, and I also cut the top off 2 large pots to make, they're not pots I'm going to use, they're just plastic pots I used last year. And basically I've made the ends of a cloche and just popped it down, and it just gives a little bit of extra protection. So underneath that bit of plastic are my parsnip seeds, and hopefully with a little bit of extra protection they will germinate. That's the plan anyway.